Check, check, 1, 2, test, testing, good.
are one. We 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 are one. So now I need your help. When I point to you, you say one wake. When I point to the audience, you say one wake. When I point to the audience, you say one wake. Call and response. We are one. 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 Wellington, housing, rising property taxes in Wake County, mental health or wellness and security, can't afford and are being chased off your land. We are one. We are one Wake, a countywide organization, a power group that came together in order to affect change in Wake County. And because we are one, we are monumental, and we make a difference. We are one. We are one. We are one. We are one. Good evening and welcome home. My name is Jamond Taylor, and I'm the rector of St. Ambrose Church. And whenever I have the opportunity to address One Wake in this space, I say welcome home, because it was in this church in 2016 that this idea of community organizing, that seed was planted. And we spent 4 years of relational meetings and conversations, and we launched in October 2020 during a once-in-a-century pandemic. And so whenever you are in this house of worship, in this community space, you are home. Tonight's assembly is a meeting of One Wake's countywide leader talk caucus, One Wake's primary decision-making body that is made up of every core team from our institutional membership base, comprised of 47 congregations, mosques, synagogues, nonprofits, and neighborhood associations across Wake County, which represent over 50,000 people. Tonight's assembly is another key moment in One Wake's current cycle of organizing, which we started almost exactly 1 year ago during a similar meeting where we ratified a strategy to speak with over 2,000 members of our communities to identify the top pressures facing our families and communities. The grassroots listening campaign led to the adoption of new priorities for One Wake in June 2023, including affordable housing, mental health, and public transportation. Since then, more than 120 volunteers and leaders have served on 6 research action teams to turn these priorities into tangible, winnable issue campaigns. In August, One Wake's countywide leadership caucus met to ratify 2 issue campaign proposals for action to address the pending displacement of over 600 adults and children at Cary's Chadam Estates mobile home community, as well as to continue and expand the crucial Smart Ride microtransit program, serving more than 13,000 rides to low-income residents in eastern Wake County. These campaigns moved more than 700 One Wake members into action last fall. We will hear reports from leaders of these campaigns tonight about promising progress that we have won together. Tonight, we will also hear from leaders representing the research action teams who have been hard at work in the background developing new issue proposals for action to address housing and mental health concerns. These proposals have already been reviewed by the One Wake strategy team, and tonight you will hear presentations on the same proposals for ratification. Also tonight, members of the strategy team will present a strategic plan, budget, and strategy team slate for your review and ratification. The proposals, plan, budget, and slate have been emailed to all who registered in advance. What you hear tonight reflects these materials. This is our strategic plan proposal. I will help start our meeting tonight by leading a brief presentation on the proposed 2024 strategic plan for the organization, which will serve as a framework for the issue campaign and action proposals that you will hear next. The full strategic plan proposal was sent out in advance and follows closely from our strategy last year. This plan imagines 2024 in 3 main parts. A period between now and June focused on organizing many smaller to mid-size actions during the spring budget process in multiple jurisdictions across the county, which will be essential to moving many of our local issue campaigns forward. A summer period from June to August focused on fundraising and preparing for the fall election season. A final period from September to December focused on a very large, nonpartisan assembly with candidates from the Raleigh City Council, the Wake County Board of Commissioners, and potentially statewide races for governor and attorney general. Depending on our capacity, this fall period could also include a significant nonpartisan get-out-to-vote effort. Tonight's focus is on the spring period of the strategic plan. Over the course of the evening, you will hear several proposals for action that all relate to budget processes in Cary, Raleigh, Wake County, and the Wake Transit Fund. Later in the spring, during our next internal assembly on May 16th, we will focus on ratifying decisions that will shape our summer plans for fundraising and preparation for the fall elections. Now I will introduce the first of several teams who will present issue and action proposals for ratification. The first 2 teams will be focused on presenting action proposals for campaigns that have already been ratified by this body last August. These teams include the Cary Housing Team, which has 2 proposals for both the Chadam Estates campaign and the Cary Housing Fund. Also included will be a report from our transportation team to discuss our next steps to help continue and expand the Smart Ride program in eastern Wake County. Following these first two teams, we will hear reports from additional research action teams who will be seeking ratification for their overall issue campaign, as well as proposals for internal action. You can follow along the presentations using the handouts that were provided to you as you entered the sanctuary. Before we hear from our action proposals, we do have overflow capacity in our parish hall, which is right through the open door. So if others enter and is not space, feel free. We have television for people to see and hear in the parish hall if there is overflow for people who have come. We will now hear from Chadam Estates leaders.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es María Angélica González.
Good evening, my name is María Angélica González.
Soy residente de Kerry y he vivido ahí durante 18 años.
I'm a resident of Cary and I have lived in Chadam Estates for 18 years.
Chadam Estates es un parque multiético de casas móviles donde hay 137 casas, pero en muchas de ellas viven más de 2 familias.
So Chadam Estates is a multi-ethnic mobile home park where there are 137 homes and many of the homes have 2 or more families living there.
El año pasado nos informaron de que el parqueadero estaba a la venta. Y obviamente esto significa que tendremos que mudarnos. Algunos de mis vecinos llevan viviendo ahí más de 30 años.
So last year we were informed that the park is for sale, and because of this it means that we're going to have to move. Some of my neighbors have lived here for over 30 years.
Esto ha provocado un gran estrés emocional y ansiedad, sobre todo en los más pequeños, nuestros hijos.
This has caused a lot of emotional stress and anxiety, especially in the youngest ones, our kids.
Para mí es preocupante esta situación, ya que por el bajo costo de la renta me he permitido poder ayudar en los estudios de mi hijo en la Universidad de Charlotte.
I am personally very concerned about this situation because thanks to the low cost of rent that we've had, this has allowed me to be able to help one of my kids to be able to further his education at the university in Charlotte.
En la encuesta que realizamos entre mis vecinos voluntarios de One Way, se indica que el 90% de los residentes son propietarios de sus casas móviles. La mayoría de ellos trabaja en Cary y sus hijos asisten a las escuelas locales.
The survey we conducted amongst my neighbors with the collaboration of One Wake and their volunteers, it indicated that 90% of the residents own their own mobile home. Most of us work in Cary and our kids go to the local schools.
Mis vecinos y yo deseamos permanecer en la zona, sin embargo, la notificación de Cary ya no permite ninguna casa móvil dentro de sus límites urbanos. Además, hay una grave escasez de viviendas a bajo costo, lo que significa que tendremos pocas opciones de quedarnos en Cary.
My neighbors and I wish that we could stay in the area. However, Cary has zoning requirements that no longer allow for any mobile home within its city limits. In addition to this, there is a severe shortage of low-cost housing, which means that we have very few options available to be able to stay.
Los plazos para el desplazamiento siguen sin estar claros.
And we're not very clear either as to when we have to move out.
Durante el último año, nosotros, los residentes, hemos estado organizándonos con la ayuda de Auau County y estamos agradecidos de que a través de estos esfuerzos de la organización, con el apoyo de todos ustedes, nuestras voces han sido escuchadas.
For the past year, residents have been organizing with the help of One Wake, and we are grateful that through those organizing efforts and with the support of each one of you, our voices have begun to be heard.
Ahora voy a invitar a mi vecina Abigail para que pronuncie alguna información sobre una posible solución. Gracias a todos por estar aquí, a todos los que nos apoyan y que Dios los bendiga a todos.
I will now be inviting my neighbor Abigail to provide some input on possible solutions, and thank you so much. Thank you all for being here, and may God bless you all.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Maria Angelica. My name is Abigail Dawa, and I'm a mom of two beautiful little girls. We live in Chadam Estates, and as Maria said, living in Chadam Estate, me particularly, has given me the opportunity to go back to school to be able to afford better in life because of the low cost of living in Chadam Estate. We have a good news today. Our campaign has begun to deliver results. Last September, 600 Chadam Estate residents and one-way member called on candidates for Cary Town Council to ensure fair treatment and compensation for everyone who is displaced by the sale of Chadam Estate. Thank you very much. Every candidate said yes. Last month, we learned that Town of Cary staff has developed a proposal to assist Chadam Estate residents and Cary Town residents who are at risk of displacement due to new development. This new proposal is called Stable Home Cary. The proposal includes two separate investments that could total up to $1.3 million. Wow. This includes $500,000 in increment case management support so that every family at Chadam Estate has personalized assistance, and a separate fund of $500,000 to $800,000 to help with the direct relocation assistance. This fund will be disbursed through Dorcas Ministry. Sorry. Okay. So, as I was saying, this fund will be disbursed through Dorcas Ministry. This fund represents a portion of the total amount needed to compensate the residents for relocation, which we believe could be as high as $3 million. It is a step in the right direction and will make it far easier for us to win additional funding for the future buyers to close the gap. The Cary Town Council will be voting on whether or not to approve this proposal during their meeting on March 14th. Part of the vote will include a decision about how much to allocate for direct financial assistance. It's important that they see a lot of supporters in the room. Therefore, we ask that all One Wake members help us organize Cary residents to attend the meeting and to support the Stable Homes Cary proposal. We are very, very grateful. When I say we, I'm talking about all Chadam Estate residents. We are very grateful for your support from the beginning, from the depth of our heart. From the kids, the babies, to the elderly, we say thank you so much for your support, and thank you so much for continuing to support us. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Wesley Spears Newsom. Is this okay, or should I use it? All right. I'm one of the associate pastors at Greenwood Forest Baptist Church in Cary. And I remember 7 years ago when I started working at the church in Cary, one of the first things I did was go to an early meeting of what would become One Wake. And as we went through our efforts of building this organization and we started to hone in on this issue of housing, I was told that it would be impossible in Cary to do anything about housing. And lo and behold, they told us, no, we don't want to do your Penny for Housing program, which would have raised $3.5 million for housing. They said no, but then when elections came around, suddenly that money was there. And now we're looking at a budget next year, which will include a fund that is almost 3 times the size of what we first asked for in Cary all those years ago. That's why I believe we can get this done. That's why I believe we can get a solution for Chadam Estates, is because we've been told it wasn't possible, but then everything we needed was there. So we want to continue this affordable housing fund that for $9 million in Cary, and budget processes are coming up soon when those decisions are going to be made. So what we want our Cary institutions to do is on May 23rd at 7 p.m., we want you to show up to the town council meeting to show them that we remember. We remember what used to be impossible, and we want to keep it possible. And I do want to know one more thing about our action for Chadam Estates on March 14th. They know we're coming. So they have moved the town council meeting to the Herb Young Community Center across the street from the town council chambers because there wasn't enough room last time we showed up. So let's make sure we fill the Herb Young Community Center on March 14th. And then on May 23rd, when we show up for the budget, let's make it so every time they talk about the budget, they have to go across the street too. And that's what we have for you. You can scan the codes in your book to register, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you. Like to welcome next my friend Reverend Steph from Zebulon.
Good evening. I am Reverend Israel Stacker. I'm the pastor at Wakefield Missionary Baptist Church in Zebulon, North Carolina, and I represent the Eastern Ministerial Alliance. And for the past 8 months, the Eastern Ministerial Alliance and One Wake have been leading a campaign to continue the expansion of the popular Smart Ride microtransit program, which was said earlier, gave over 13,000 rides that allowed low-income families to get to the grocery store, to get the medical appointments, to get to the social service office. And this campaign is connected to the top One Wake priority on public transportation, which came from last year's listing campaign and has 2 goals. The first one is to continue Smart Ride program at current levels beyond the expiration date of the federal grant in June 2024. And the second is to expand the program to serve the growing demands of the programs across Eastern Wake County. It's getting so big that we need more. We need more. And last fall, the Eastern Ministerial Alliance and One Wake organization organized the largest nonpartisan assembly in Zebulon recent history, which all candidates that was running for Zebulon's Board of Town Commissioners and over 100 supporters showed up. And every candidate pledged to help us continue the Smart Ride program if elected. Well, I got some good news for y'all. The Zebulon Board of Commissioners had a special meeting January the 4th. And in this special meeting, they approved a resolution to continue the Smart Ride program in partnership with Wendell, Knightdale, and Wake County. Amen. With a total investment with a total investment of over $538,000 a year. Yes, we can do it in Eastern Wake County. And that's because of you guys. That's because of One Wake. And we appreciate you. See, at the end of last year, we didn't even think the program was going to continue. We didn't think the program was going to go on, but now we can be assured that this program will be in place, from years to come. But we're not done, church. We're not done at all. See, now we got to work on expanding the Smart Ride program. We have a major opportunity. The Wake Transit Plan is undergoing a substantial update in 2024 to determine how the operation and capital fund balance that exceeds over $500 million will be spent. See, this is an exciting opportunity to ensure that these funds are more equitably distributed to the underserved communities across the county. See, Wake Transit Plan update will include a significant public engagement period starting in April. This period will include in-person workshops, pop-up events, and online surveys, and will shape how the Wake Transit funds are invested across the county. See, the One Wake public transportation team proposal is to deliver at least 100 One Wake members to participate in the engagement process and lift up our interest around expanding Wake Transit funds in outer municipalities like Zebulon. See, the dates of the engagement events are not yet released. In lieu of this information, tonight we are asking One Wake members to use the information that is in your handout to sign up for our interest list so that we can contact you when the dates are released. Now, I personally like to thank all of you. I see some faces that I remember that was with us in Zebulon, and maybe you're online now and you're not here, but I would like to thank each and every one of you from Eastern Wake County for standing up. If I could take a picture of love, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. And I thank you. And now, the White Flag Shelter Action, Reverend, mental health, I was jumping the gun. Mental health action proposal, Dr. David Smoot from Southeastern Raleigh Table and Dr. Renee Mane from the Fountain of Raleigh Fellowship.
Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Renee Mane. I am an Executive Director of Renewed Strength Counseling Services and a member of the Fountain of Raleigh Fellowship.
And I'm David Smoot. I'm a child psychologist here in Raleigh. Being a psychologist for just about 36 years, I can tell you I'm just really amazed and thrilled to see that mental health is right up front in the interests of people here in Wake County. The One Wake mental health team was formed in June to develop a top priority identified during our listening campaign, mental health, and to turn that into tangible, winnable issues.
And after a thorough review of the notes from our listening campaign, the mental health team identified 3 key concerns related to mental health that came up consistently. First, a lack of full-range mental health services in Wake County. Although we are in the field ourselves, that we could have more people, for sure. The need is great, but the professionals are few. There's a barrier to accessing, existing mental health services in Wake County, and a pervasive sense of not knowing what to do when encountering a family member or a member of a congregation or someone in public that is experiencing a mental health crisis.
So since the fall, One Wake's mental health team has done months of research to identify how to address these concerns that we are hearing from our local congregations and nonprofits. So tonight, on behalf of the team, Dr. Renee and I are proposing 2 concrete action steps for One Wake's approval.
The first proposal is for One Wake to support an existing coalition that is already putting together a pilot of an alternative response unit in Raleigh. That unit is called the Raleigh HEART Pilot Program. HEART stands for Holistic Empathetic Assistance Response Teams. The Raleigh HEART Pilot is a data-driven, research-based proposal that will route nonviolent mental health crises to trained professionals who can assist best in these situations instead of an armed police officer. One Wake has a unique opportunity to support this existing work that's already in place. This is put together by multiple organizations organized by Emancipate North Carolina. The Raleigh HEART Pilot has researched and found that a substantial number of Wake County 911 calls were found to be related to mental health crises, and they were often nonviolent. A mental health emergency can escalate quickly if the responder is not adequately trained to help a person that's in mental health crises. Other statewide analysis found that officer-involved shootings in North Carolina found at least 39% of those incidences involved a person experiencing a mental health crisis or a person who had a history of mental health. And unfortunately for African Americans that struggle with mental illness, an armed police encounter can be 10 times more likely to be deadly. So over 75 One Wake members have been recently participating in listening sessions to learn more about this pilot proposal. The Raleigh HEART Pilot is modeled after the Durham HEART Pilot program and similar other programs that are across the nation that are very successful. I would encourage anyone that is interested in understanding more about the Raleigh HEART program to find more information on their website, as well as the Durham program that's just our neighbor down the street and how successful they've been just in the implementation through this past year. This pilot program would complement existing programs here in Raleigh, such as the Acorns program and the crisis intervention training for law enforcement in Raleigh. It is not here to replace those programs. The mental health team's proposal is to organize one or more of these actions to deliver at least 50 One Wake members and Raleigh residents to a Raleigh City Council meeting to demonstrate that we have a broad base of support for this proposal. In order for this pilot to proceed, the Raleigh City Council must vote to approve the pilot and a $3 million budget. Until the Raleigh City Council meeting, One Wake members that live in Raleigh are invited to fill out a community engagement survey. That survey should be in your bulletin, and you can give feedback on that proposed pilot. You can read about it on the website as well as give your feedback. Please do not delay because this survey is only online until this Sunday.
Okay. And then our second proposal speaks to the three issues that Dr. Renee mentioned, that a lot of times people really don't know how to respond to someone that's in a mental health crisis. We're not sure where to refer people. We're not sure how we can de-escalate situations that are difficult. So our second proposal is to work to provide mental health first aid training within our member faith organizations and nonprofits. So this would be an internal action. This would be something that we see a need within our One Wake communities, and that we would recommend that we put in place for those organizations. So since last fall, we've met together with Alliance Health to create a training opportunity for at least 30 individuals to become skilled in recognizing and dealing with mental health and substance problem issues. Mental health first aid training has become a priority with many organizations in recent years, ranging from local churches to UNC to Charlotte MEC Police Department, Wake Med, and Wake County Public Schools. From the feedback we received in the listening sessions, we believe it's important for our member organizations also to be trained in mental health first aid. Mental health first aid helps the compassionate community to recognize and respond effectively to mental health crises in the same way that CPR training helps people respond to cardiac emergencies. 1 in 20 individuals have a serious mental illness, and our youth have shown a huge increase in their need for mental health treatment. Our faith organizations are more likely than ever to face the needs of their own members who may be susceptible to mental health crises. We're also more than ever likely to encounter someone in crisis through our mission outreach with populations such as those experiencing homelessness or reentry following incarceration. Our proposal is to have 30 individuals who have an interest in learning more about this and to come from across our different member organizations to volunteer for training in mental health first aid. That training will require about 5 hours of education plus homework. We believe this proposal will create a larger base of people who are not only trained to recognize and respond compassionately to mental health needs, but who also would be invested as advocates for additional behavioral health initiatives in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my friends. Are you hanging in there? I'm the Reverend Dr. James Koto, and I have the privilege and pleasure of serving as lead minister at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh. I also serve as a member of the One Awake strategy team. Let me tell you a story. For several years, St. John's Metropolitan Community Church operated a white flag shelter, an emergency shelter for unhoused individuals that would open when temperatures dropped below 35 degrees. But then, a little bit more than a year ago, St. John's lost the space it used to host the white flag shelter. A call went out to many congregations asking if there were other congregations that could offer space. My congregation and a few others said yes. So on many nights last winter, when temperatures dropped below 35 degrees, my congregation hosted more than 50 individuals in one of our buildings. It wasn't easy. It wasn't convenient. It wasn't the best space for them. But it was the right thing to do, and it may have saved lives. This winter, St. John's has found other buildings, both to use as a white flag shelter and a regular drop-in shelter, a shelter available even when the temperature isn't below 35 degrees. The shelter St. John operates, as well as the drop-in shelter operated by other organizations, both of these receive money from the city and the county, are seeing record numbers of men, women, and children. I'm sure nobody in this room is surprised to hear that there are record numbers. Is anybody in this room surprised to hear that there are record numbers of homeless folks, unhoused folks in our community? No. Unfortunately, the buildings St. John is using this year are also temporary. It is planned they will eventually be torn down. Now, the Wake County Commissioners received a report last fall documenting the need for more permanent, year-round drop-in shelter space. Why permanent? Among homeless individuals, among unhoused individuals and others, there's a lot of confusion about where people could get shelter for the night. Even though it's been more than a year since my congregation housed folks, we still have people coming by on cold nights seeking shelter. I've heard about police dropping off individuals at the wrong location. Changing locations every year creates confusion. And why year-round? Because growing numbers, as well as the threat sweltering summer heat poses for homeless individuals, because of these things, we need year-round shelters. Will this cost money? Yes. But it's estimated in the United States the annual cost of homelessness is already between $30,000 and $100,000 per homeless person per year. And this includes costs associated with police, jails, prison, courts, ambulances, hospital emergency departments, hospital admitted patients, mental health services, and homelessness services. One way or the other, we are already paying for the increase in homelessness. How many of you think we can find a better way to spend that money? Good. A few months ago, I was talking to a woman who had to go to the emergency room in the middle of the night, but ended up having to go to another hospital because there were so many homeless people also waiting in the emergency room. She didn't blame them, and neither would I. If it were cold and I had to sleep outside on a January night, I might fake a need to be in an emergency room too. Now, I have some good news to share. A site has already been identified that could serve as a permanent, year-round shelter. Yeah, and city and county staff seem likely to recommend funding for the purchase of this site and year-round funding to offer drop-in services there. Elected leaders, at least at this time, seem likely to approve this funding. But in my experience, how many of you have ever been parents of teenage children? In my experience, elected leaders are like teenage children. Sometimes it's important to catch them doing something right. So it will be important for One Wake to have a large presence both at city and county hearings this spring to let our officials know that we fully support them in approving this funding. We want to catch them doing something right. My friends, let's make sure that by next winter, no man, no woman, no child, no youth, no individual whatsoever will ever have to sleep outside in their car or in an abandoned building again. Thank you for your support.
Good evening, friends and family of One Wake. My name is Auau Santi, and I currently get to serve as the Director of Operations at the Southeast Raleigh Table. In addition to my work there, I also serve as an ambassador for a body positive gym. So I've always thought of my work as the intersection of creating safe places for people to exist and also making space for the body to take up space. I wanted to share a little bit about my story and my relationship to home and home ownership. I'm the child of Ghanaian immigrants who were sold an American dream that did not account for the systems and barriers that they would have to navigate or that their children would face. Almost a year after I was born in Canada, my family and I moved to live just outside of DC, and we eventually settled in Baltimore. They worked several jobs while trying to care for a growing family, managing immigration issues, keeping the lights on, and eventually in the fall of 1999, my parents were able to purchase a home. I wasn't aware at the time, but my parents had really hustled to pull together a down payment. My parents had saved at least 20% for a down payment, which at that time was a lot, was a huge stretch for them, competing with other buyers to put in the highest offer. Our joy was upended by the 2008 financial crisis, and I was in high school at the time. What started as delayed payments on our mortgage eventually turned into missing payments altogether. We started 2008 in good financial standing, and by Christmas that year, our house was pretty much not ours. My parents worked hard to get our house back, meeting with lenders who eventually negotiated a variable and high interest rate, which we struggled to keep up with, but knew we didn't have the luxury to be undisciplined about. And as a high school student who wants to celebrate getting to the end of high school and graduating, that also started to affect my social opportunities and what it meant to be a child before becoming an adult. And the reality is that discipline around paying mortgages and bills is not the issue. That unfairly places blame on the individual and doesn't indict the actual systems keeping individuals, families, communities together in stable living conditions. It is the fault of the system. It is the fault of the general beliefs around what it means for our liberation to be bound in one another. That if you are not free, then I am not free. If I have a home, you have a home. This all started to shift for me when I went to college and had my first taste of community and what shared resources looked like. Of course, I did all the right things by going to college, graduating, getting a degree, finding a job right after college, but for some reason, all this effort doesn't add up to a down payment for a home. Under the crushing debt of student loans I took out to become that college grad that people celebrated, how can I afford to buy a home when the goal post for affordability keeps changing? This is what I mean when I talk about indicting the system and not the individual. Currently, I live, work, and play in beloved Southeast Raleigh, and I want it to stay that way. I'm working so hard to make sure that that is the case. I work multiple jobs, and my income can't keep up with the housing prices. I live in a 625 square foot, one-bedroom apartment across the street from a house that went up for sale and under contract in 2 weeks for $625,000. This was this month. Even if I wanted to go for that home, I don't have $19,000 for a 3% down payment, not to mention closing costs and repairs, and I can't do this on my own. This is why the work of One Wake is so compelling to me. It is community action. It is community in action. And lastly, I want to close with a story that reminds me that we don't have to do this alone, that one day this might be true for all of us who desire to own homes. This is an image that has not let me go, that has given me energy around our organizing efforts. About a month ago, I was on my way to church early on a Sunday morning, and on my way out of the neighborhood, I saw a woman who was standing in her yard, this beautiful yard that was lush with plants. Even in the winter was lush. Things were even overgrowing, and the grass was covered in dew, and the sun was bright. The skies were clear, and it was oddly warm, and this woman, she had this beautiful cup of coffee, and she had her other hand in the crook of her hip, much like the aunties that I grew up standing on her porch, and she was just gazing at her plants. I was almost brought to tears because I realized I was seeing what I wanted. I was seeing a vision of what my heart has always wanted, and I have known that I cannot afford without intervention. I shared this vision with dear friends and members of the Southeast Raleigh Table, an event we hosted with One Wake regarding affordable housing. And since then, my siblings in the faith have held this vision with me and for me. It has been prayed over me, repeated to me, a memorable vision that even others have wanted for themselves. I hope that one day I will get to hold a coffee cup and stand with my hand on my hip and gaze at my yard. And I want that for each person who desires home ownership. And I ask that you would hold that with me, that we as One Wake would hold that together, that when my eyes grow dim or when I am tired or when we are weak, that you might say, I believe in that for you. I want you to have your hand on your hip and gaze peacefully on the yard that belongs to you. Thank you. And I'd love to invite up Reverend Dr. Donna Battle to share more about our Nehemiah proposal and our efforts towards affordable housing.
Thank you, Auau. As Auau mentioned, my name is Donna Battle. I am a leader at Southeast Raleigh Table. Tonight you have heard several proposals for local issue campaigns to address pressing concerns in Cary, in Zebulon, and in Raleigh. Our proposal tonight is for One Wake to consider initiating the first phase of a larger, long-term, countywide issue campaign that we are calling Home Ownership to Equity Campaign, to address the lack of affordable housing in Wake County, the widening racial wealth gap in our communities, and the displacement and destruction of historical Black and brown neighborhoods. In Wake County, there is a deficit of approximately 65,000 units of affordable housing. Black households in Wake County and across North Carolina claim only about 13% of wealth and approximately 4% of the net worth of white households. This problem is rooted in our local history of racial segregation and redlining, where Black families were moved to less desirable areas due to restrictions on purchasing homes in white neighborhoods. For example, in 1957, Black families were allowed to build homes in the Rochester Heights neighborhood of Raleigh. However, the land had previously been a landfill and exists in low-lying, flood-prone area of Walnut Creek. This has had lasting effects on generational wealth and community development, with many historic Black communities being destroyed by floods, new developments, and gentrification. Today, these inequities persist. In Raleigh today, homes owned by Black people are valued at 15.5% less than those owned by white people, all other things being the same. Today, the continued rise of housing prices across Wake County serve as another form of redlining, blocking access to build wealth and forcing many Black and brown people to purchase homes outside of Wake County. What this does is it weakens Black and brown neighborhoods, institutions, and political power. For example, in the historically Black College Park neighborhood in Raleigh, the percentage of Black residents dropped from 89% to 56% over the last decade, while the number of white residents grew 400%. One Wake's sister organization, East Brooklyn Congregations, faced a similar problem in the 1980s. Black and brown people were forced to live in substandard conditions, and working class people were at an extreme disadvantage to purchase homes. They decided to stop waiting for elected decision makers to fix the problem for them. They did instead what we are going to do. They built enough power, that is organized people and organized money, to successfully demand Mayor Koch sell them city-owned land in East New York for $1 per lot. They then formed a development company, the Nehemiah Housing Development Finance Corporation, which to date has built over 6,500 units of affordable houses, mostly homes, which have generated over $1.6 billion worth of generational wealth for Black and brown families. Over the last 12 months, One Wake leaders have met with the Nehemiah team to learn how we can reproduce this incredible success here in Wake County. And I had the opportunity to visit and tour the Nehemiah housing community. When I went, I experienced it as a place of belonging and access. In the neighborhood, within walking distance, was a grocery store, were retail stores, beauty supply, and nail salons. It was clean, it felt safe, and it was beautiful to behold and walk through. We have an opportunity, you all, to work with Nehemiah and their team to build not just affordable housing, but affordable, thriving communities and neighborhoods that provide access to those consistently shut out here in our county. But if we want this, we will need three things. We need land, we need subsidy, but most importantly, we need power. It was Shirley Chisholm that says, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Y'all, power is our folding chair. We have identified hundreds of acres of undeveloped land owned by the City of Raleigh and Wake County, as well as church-owned land that is suitable for affordable housing development. And we have begun to identify potential funding sources. Our vision is to host a strictly nonpartisan candidate assembly attended by 1,000 One Wake members with candidates for Raleigh City Council and Wake County Board of Commissioners in October before the start of early voting. This will be an opportunity to win initial commitments of support from the candidates. We propose to have 1,000 people at that public action and to hand over 10,000 signed petitions saying, "I will vote in the 2024 elections and I support One Wake's home ownership to equity campaign." The question is, how do we get 1,000 people and 10,000 signatures? We are asking small institutions to pledge to recruit at least 25 members to attend our October candidate assembly in person and to collect at least 500 signatures over the course of the spring and summer on the petitions we will provide for you. We are asking our larger institutions to pledge to recruit over 50 or at least 50 members to attend our October candidate assembly in person and to collect at least 750 signatures on petitions. To support your efforts, One Wake organizers will work with you to host at least one large internal meeting within your institution this spring or summer to brief your members on this proposed campaign. As I prepare to take my seat, this campaign is being led by One Wake's Black leaders and institutions who have already begun organizing internal meetings to gauge support from their members. And it is important for us to pause for just a moment to understand why Black leadership is important in this campaign. One, our Black and brown communities are disproportionately impacted by this. And two, when we are led by those who are at the furthest margins of the circle of humanity, all of humanity within that circle is covered. And so what we must understand is that just as in the civil rights movement of the 60s and 70s, that movement didn't just benefit Black folks in America, but all who fell below the top tier of privilege. This particular campaign will center the experiences of Black and brown folks, which ensures that all will have the benefit of access. All will have the benefit of belonging. We all, however, must show up. We need you to show up, even if in this season you are not called to be in the forefront. Aboriginal leader and activist Lilla Watson says, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." This is the first phase of this campaign, the first. We hold the wisdom of Angela Davis, who taught we have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world, and we have to do it all the time. This is something we are in for the long haul with. We're in the long haul with this. But for now, our initial focus is on internal meetings, and it is on the petition signing drive. When we break, we will ask every institution here to pledge whether or not they will support this campaign. I would like for you to invite and welcome my colleague, Reverend Javier, to the mic as he talks about slate and budget. Thank you.
Y'all, I've been up here before, but every time I'm up here, I always regret going after all these stories. It's always hard to follow all these powerful stories that people have shared tonight. Good evening. Good evening, One Wake. Buenas noches, One Wake. It's good to be with you. My name is Javier Almendares Bautista. I'm a priest at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Cary, and I am one of the members of One Wake's strategy team. It is good to be with you tonight. It is good to be here at St. Ambrose, one of the places where the idea of One Wake was born, back in 2016, if I remember correctly. I remember meeting a few of the people here at that meeting, a few of you who were tired of business as usual in Wake County. A mighty few who wanted to take action before the next crisis, before the next vigil. A mighty few who wanted to act before the bills were late and the rent was past due. When 2 or 3 are gathered, the Holy One is in their midst, and we are more than 2 or 3 tonight, my friends. Who knew that this is what we would become? Who knew that this is what we could accomplish together? I got to tell you, I sure didn't. I had no idea. I don't think any of us did. One Wake has always been a group project, the result of our collective passions, the outcome of our persistent, consistent action over days, months, and years. No one person gets to take credit for tonight. No individual could accomplish our ambitious agenda, even if they tried. One Wake is something that we build together. And therefore, it is only possible when you are at the table. Thank you for making One Wake possible. Our final order of business tonight is to present our proposed strategy team slate and our 2024 budget. The strategy team is made up of people just like you. It serves as One Wake's corporate board and as the executive committee to the county-wide Leaders Caucus, which is One Wake's primary decision-making body. It develops proposals for the strategic organizing goals and plans for the organization, oversees fiscal responsibility, and evaluates personnel. Last fall, One Wake made an open call for nominations for the strategy team. All nominations have been reviewed by the strategy team and have been included in the slate included in your handout. The full slate, which we will offer to you for a simple up and down vote shortly, is as follows. Myself, Ann Carlson, James Koto, Jamon Taylor, Lisa Yabua, Nancy Dilger, Rose Cornelius, Royce Hathcock, Wesley Spears Newsom, Israel Stacker, and Jacques Cottrell. Many members are poised to cycle off the board this coming year, so in 2024, it will be important to recruit more new members for the strategy team. People who are hungry for this work, people who are directly affected by the issues we are trying to tackle, people, in other words, that are just like you. Feel free to approach any of our current strategy team members or the organizers if you have questions about this role. You can also learn more about the strategy team on our website at onewake.org. Now, in addition to the strategy team slate, we are also presenting a 2024 budget proposal for your review, which is included in your handout. It was also emailed out before this meeting to those who signed up to attend. This budget, the budget proposal in front of you is to raise 55% of our income in 2024 from our membership base and 45% of our income from private foundations in the form of general operating support grants. The significant item for your attention tonight is to continue building on the strength of our first individual donor campaign in 2023. Between one-time donations and recurring donations, we raised close to $30,000 last year. Give yourself a hand for that. This year, the strategy team would like to propose raising $50,000 in individual donations outside of membership dues that each of our organizations already pay. This funding will help to support all of the proposals that you have heard tonight by maintaining our current staffing and hiring a new organizer. Now, Tonight, we are also asking for general approval of this budget with the understanding that we will present and ratify a specific individual donor campaign proposal at our next internal assembly on May 16th. Friends, our work is not done yet. Let us build something that we can be proud of, and let us continue to work for a better Wake County together. I'll now hand things over to Jimmy Torres for instructions about our institutional caucus. Thank you.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Jimmy Torres. I represent Fiesta Cristiana Mission Congregation Church in Apex, North Carolina. I'm a community health worker and an outreach manager for my church. Tonight we've heard of a number of proposals to move One Wake into action this spring to address our shared priorities. Our next responsibility is to caucus by institution to do the following. First, to decide whether to ratify each proposal, as well as the strategic plan, budget, and strategy team slate. Second, to pledge to organize participation in one or more of the actions that were presented tonight. Third, and finally, to nominate a spokesperson who can present your decision making in a report out at the end of the meeting. We have prepared some tools to help support this process. The handouts that you received tonight include a summary of the proposals. In a moment, we will distribute one orange pledge card per institution that you can use to record your decisions on pledge numbers. We will give you 10 minutes for your discussion, and we'll give you a 1-minute warning as time begins to run out. And if you're not seated within your institution, please find your way to them at this point, and you can begin your discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for your time caucusing. If I will, I invite representatives from each congregation to come and gather at the microphone. I guess we're already lined up. So as you come to the microphone, very simple, because we don't want to be here all night. If you just turn to page 3, the last page, we just want to know, do you support the strategic plan, the budget, and the slate? So you can come up, give your name, institution, yes, 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 no, yes, no, no, yes. All right. Let me make sure this microphone is on and we have the first institution come forward. All right, we're good to go.
Hi, my name's Becky Showalter. I'm with Church of the Nativity Episcopal Church in North Raleigh. We are yes, yes, and yes.
So Jimmy Torres, Fiesta Cristiana, on proposal number 10. One week strategy team, yes. 1 week 2024 budget, yes. And 1 week 24 strategy team slate, yes. Thank you.
Ann Carlson, Christ the King Lutheran, yes, yes, yes.
Mary Kent's from St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Cary, that's 3 yeses.
Reverend Stacker, the Eastern Ministerial Alliance, yes, yes, and yes.
Kevin Johnson, Macedonia United Methodist Church in Cary, yes, yes, and yes.
Craig Herb, Raleigh Mennonite Church, yes, yes, and yes.
Carla Diener, representing St. Francis United Methodist Church in Cary, yes, yes, and yes.
Casey Slock, supporting, representing the Catholic community of St. Francis of Assisi, yes, yes, and yes.
Karen Moran on behalf of Pleasant Grove Church in Cary, yes, yes, and yes.
Nathan Bullock from Greenwood Forest Baptist Church in Cary, yes, yes, and yes.
Judy Keys, Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, 3 yeses.
Jerry Slaymaker, Cary Presbyterian Church, 3 yeses.
Chris Alberti, Good Shepherd United Church of Christ in Cary, that's yes, yes, and yes.
Hi, I'm Richard Jones from the Fountain of Raleigh. I'm here in Raleigh. Yes, yes, and yes.
Lawrence Sneed from Friendship Chapel Baptist Church in Wake Forest. Yes, yes, and yes.
Jessica Turner from Southeast Raleigh Table. Yes, yes, and yes.
Curtis Mulder from Ecclesia Church at Raleigh. Yes, yes, and yes.
Julia Daniels, St. Ambrose Episcopal Church here in Raleigh, and yes, yes, yes.
Dion McGee, representing Watts Chapel Missionary Baptist Church. That is yes, yes, and yes.
Dr. Rochelle, representing Juniper Level Missionary Baptist Church. Yes, yes, yes.
Adrian Samuel from Baptist Grove Church, and that is yes, yes, and yes.
Roger Adama from Raleigh Vineyard, 3 yeses.
Jeff Whitaker from the Episcopal Church of the Good Shepherd, 3 yeses.
Mark Zainadine on behalf of West Raleigh Presbyterian Church, yes, yes, yes.
Elisa Walper, Temple Bethor, yes, yes, yes.
Gloria Cook, White Plains United Methodist Church in Cary, 3 yeses.
Boyd Rogers, Pullman Memorial Baptist, 3 yeses.
Andre Anthony with Dorcas Ministries, and we're yes on all 3.
%100 yes. Congratulations, one weight. Thank you all for a fantastic, energizing, and exciting internal assembly. 2024 will be the best year of One Wake yet. We look forward to the work we can do collectively. Please be sure to mark your calendars to save the date in early May for the internal assembly. And I bid you a good evening and a safe trip home. God bless.